Sheikh, before you start, can you just check your net? Or is it normal?
Check your minute in what way, please? Can you tell me?
No, it was yellow a minute ago.
This is Brixton message, so it's not mine.
It's fine now.
Can we just restart, please? الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. All praises due to Allah, and may peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. This is the 45th episode, believe it or not, in the fruits that we read from the biography of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we are in the second part of the refutation of the doubts thrown by the disbelievers or the enemies of the Sunnah or the enemies in of Islam in totality, in its entirety, against so the doubtful things that they throw against Islam. So this is a refutation for them. If it's possible to take the echo, an echo. It's possible. I think, Farad, would you change, please, the microphone setting, maybe the one down and the one with the top? Annoying. Right. So the first part, a recap, in the first part, we have refuted the accusation of the disbelievers against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, that's much better. Jazakallah khairan for the microphone. That is the refutation against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the Prophet of Allah he had come with the Islam and revelation for himself, and we refuted that, or that he is hallucinating. أعوذ بالله كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا. How can they say that the Prophet of Allah is a person who is a loony or possessed or hallucinating? The second doubtful thing that they threw onto Islam, that the Prophet of Allah took Islam from the Jews and the Christians, and they said that he's a student of the rabbis. So they give an example, Waraqat ibn Nawfal, he was a Christian, so he learned from him. And also Ka'b ibn Mati', the Jewish rabbi, Abdullah ibn Salam, the Jewish rabbi, Suhaib al-Rumi, the Christian, Salman al-Farisi, the one who traveled from fire worshipping to Christianity to Islam. So he had learned from them, and we have as well refuted those allegations and those doubtful matters. And today or tonight, we will be discussing, inshallah, the enemies of Islam and the enemies of Sunnah in particular. The so-called, they are Quranis, or they are Muslim, but they don't believe in the Sunnah. And their argumentation is, I would say that the Bukhari is false rather than to belie the Prophet of Allah. So they are coming from that angle. So we are believing the Prophet. Dare we say anything about the Prophet of Allah? But if a Bukhari brings a hadith which is not acceptable by the aql or the intellect, then we're going to refute that Bukhari and refute that Muslim. So we're going to basically talk about that issue. How's my sound? Yeah, it's okay?
Yeah, Sheikh, it's good.
Getting in closer to me. طيب. It is those people from before and after, those enemies of Islam. Either they will say a hadith and attribute it to the Prophet ﷺ, which are not correct and authentic, or they come to a hadith which is really authentic, they interpret it in such a way that they say it cannot be authentic, even it's in Bukhari and Muslim. So the first, which is very dangerous, and that is to attribute to the Prophet of Allah something he did not say. And we don't believe in that. We didn't believe that these other hadith, but they say this is the Prophet said that, and that's dangerous because you are going to be making something to be part of Islam, part of the biography of the Prophet of Allah, and it is not. And the other one, which is to say that the hadith, which is authentic, from the Prophet of Allah, 100%, but it does not go with the aql in the intellect, then we say that it is not correct. So you are now taking away something which is supposed to be from Islam, or taking away something which is supposed to be from the biography of the Prophet. So both routes, we refute them, and we refute them properly. So if both are to be refused to be part of our manhaj, so we're going to be now refuting the argumentation of those who are the enemies of the Sunnah, who attribute to the Sunnah, which is, no, it is a hadith sahih, but they say that it cannot be fit. So we have to really throw that Sunnah. It cannot be correct. Siraj, do we have a fan? No, we can't find. We have a fan. Okay. Abdul Hamid had a fan. This is just, can I ask maybe for that one, maybe far away, it brings us something from there. Maybe, if it's possible. Jazakallah. Barakallah. That's the improvisation school. Fine. Let's go now to Barakallah Fik. I know you hear the sound, but you don't feel the. These ones are going to bring nothing. Put them on. It's too far away. Sorry, our brothers, we're just putting the fans on. It's a bit warm here today. Jazakallah. Right, the first one, you've heard this hadith, which is being put part of an authentic hadith. How we're going to refute it, and that is during the time when the Prophet ﷺ did not receive the revelation at the beginning. According to Aisha radiallahu anha wa ardaha, she said, أول ما بدأ به رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من الوحي, the first thing that the Prophet of Allah had received from revelation, الرؤيا الصالحة في النوم, the right vision, true vision, righteous vision that he sees during his sleep. قال فكان لا يرى شيئا إلا يأتي كفلق الصبح. Anything that he sees, it becomes true like what? Dawn. That means 100%. That's revelation. ثم حبب إليه الخلاء. Then after that, he loved to be secluding himself on his own. خلاء from khalwa, being on his own. And he used to do that in the cave of Hira. يتحنث الليالي. He used to make worship away from the polytheism of the kuffar. They used to slaughter the altars, pray to the, and supplicate to the statues. So he kept away from that. So he's on the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يتحنث. What do you call that? Seclusion. Okay. And he used to have some food from Khadija, his wife, and stays for days away from her, for nights, 3-4 nights, and come back. Prophet ﷺ, one day, he had Jibreel alayhi salam coming to him in the cave. That's the first time he had the real wahi, now not the vision. When he saw Jibreel alayhi salam, he said to him, Iqra, recite, read. He said, I'm not an scribe. I don't read, I don't write. So he hugged him and he pressed him, then released him. He said, Iqra, I can't read. Second time, he done that, and released him. Iqra, third time, can't. Pressed him, released him. After the third time, he said, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. First 5 verses of Surah Al-Alaq. Recite in the name of your Lord, the one who created human being from a clot, alaq, from a cling, whatever you call it, leech. Iqra, recite in the name of your Lord, the one who taught by the pen, gave you the knowledge. He taught the person something that he doesn't know. First 5 verses of Surah Al-Alaq. So, Prophet ﷺ, seeing somebody in the cave, he's an angel. He doesn't know what he is. He went to Khadija and he was scared. And he said the following word, Khashitu ala nafsi. I was scared of myself. Are we gonna, these are the things that the shayateen, they use them against the Prophet ﷺ as an accusation, doubtful matters. Khashitu ala nafsi, scared of myself. And Khadija straight away, she said, La wallah, no by Allah. La yukhzika Allahu abad. Allah will not disgrace you at all. فَإِنَّكَ تَصِلُ الرُّحْمِ. Number 1, you join the kinship. وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلْبِ. That is, you give the people the things that no one has it except for you. So you provide the people something that the people hasn't got except for you. قال وَتُقْرِ الضَّيْفِ. And also you are entertaining the guests. وَتُكْسِبُ الْمَعْدُومِ. And you provide the person who's got nothing. Ma'doom is deprived. And finally, وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ. And you help to establish the truth, the justice. So there is a dhulm, you lift the dhulm, the oppression, to replace it with justice. 5 things mentioned by Khadija. There is a person who's been described by these 5 things. Who is he? Yes? Abu Bakr. Now 10 pounds for the person who tells me who is that person who had given him those 5 descriptions, and it's not Khadija, yet they were exactly the same word for word, and this person never met Khadija to learn that Khadija had said this to the Prophet. Who is that person? Huh? He's going to take my 10 pounds. He's going to take my 10 pounds. He's not a Muslim. He's close. He's close. He's 10 pounds fighting now. Huh? No, he's not what. Yeah, he had actually misled you. You said disbeliever is correct, but Waraqah did not miss disbeliever, is a believer. Anybody from the audience here? I've got, mashallah, a number of people here. Let me just see. Anybody from the, about 17 people here. Come on. Don't Google it. Okay, his name is Sayyid al-Qara. The chief of the clan of the tribe is called Al-Qara. Well-known person. He met Abu Bakr while he was going to make the migration to Abyssinia. So what are you going for? He said, I'm having to go and worship Allah in a place where people are not going to tell me off. He said, you're a person who should not be driven out of your land. For verily. And he gave him 5 things given by Khadija to the Prophet. So the Prophet, the closest one to him is Abu Bakr. So straight away Khadija, after she tells him these words, he takes him to her cousin. Could be her uncle, because he's her cousin. He's the brother of her great-grandfather. He's like a cousin. So Waraqah ibn Nawfal, he left paganism and he became a Christian. Person who reads and a scribe. He reads the Hebrew, the Aramaic language. It's not the Greek. By the way, this is Greek. There's nothing to do with the Bible. First Hebrew language, the old Hebrew, not the new Hebrew, the old Hebrew. So he used to write from them as well. So he knows. So she said to him, look at what happened to Muhammad, your nephew, like a nephew as in the son of your brother. What happened? Tell me. And he's an old man, very old, so old that he's blind, can't see. So the Prophet of Allah told him what happened about the revelation and everything that happened. So he said to him, إنه الناموس الذي نزل على موسى عليه السلام. This is the angel, the one who is assigned to give revelation to the prophets, who came down on the prophet, who? Musa alayhi salam. Then he said, ليتني كنت جدعا. I wish I was young when your people gonna drive you away from your land. So he's predicting now he's gonna be the prophethood, and later on he's gonna have a group with him, and then the people are gonna be having animosity towards him, and they're gonna, his own people are gonna drive him out of his land. All that predicted, because he said, my people will drive me out of my land. He said, nobody came with whatever you came up with, which is prophethood, except he will have animosity. Illa udi. Udiya means, he mean what? Enmity. Everybody will not like him, except for a few people who will be with him. And then he said, وَإِن يُدْرِكْنِي يَوْمُكَ. And if I to live to see the day when you become a prophet to send, because the Prophet of Allah now, he is not yet had been given the mission to preach. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. It's not been given now to أنذر عشيرتك الأقربين. No, it hasn't been given the prophet yet. Later, I wish that he said, if I live to see your time, your days, لأنصرنك نصرا مؤزرا. Well, he said, I will be with you to help you. Then he died after that. Now this revelation now of Jibreel salam stopped. Now how long stopped? Allahu A'lam. 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. There was no Jibreel salam coming to the Prophet. It was only that day. Now after that, there is an old hadith which is being added to this authentic. Up to here is authentic. The part which is not authentic, which is the extra bit, is what Az-Zuhri, we call it in Balaghat Az-Zuhri. Imam Az-Zuhri, rahimahullah. He said, and after that the wahi got stopped, حتى حزن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, until the Prophet of Allah got so sad, حتى أنه يتردى من رؤوس الجبال, and he was trying to throw himself from the top of the mountains. And every time he goes on top of the mountain to throw himself, Jibreel would come to him. He said, "Oh Muhammad, you are the messenger of Allah, true." Then he will go away from the top of the mountain. Then later on, he would go back to the top of the mountain to throw himself. Repeating that again. So the kuffar and the enemies of the Sunnah, from before and until today, they take that narration, okay, and they start saying, "How can it be? You know, Bukhari and Muslim, you believe in it when this narration is attached to it." So in the past they said, this is the Prophet is having doubts about his being a messenger, about his prophethood. And by the way, they're saying that we are with the Prophet, but we're saying that this Sunnah is what? Rubbish. Don't believe in it. Okay? Say the Sunnah is rubbish. And how can he go and complain to Khadija radiallahu anha? How? To complain to Khadija. How can he complain to Khadija? And how can Khadija take him to a man who is a pagan? Waraqa. Okay? So they should, maybe Khadija and Waraqa, they have more priority to be prophet than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you understand why? Because if Khadija, she was calm, she said, no, don't worry about it. Allah will not disgrace you. And you, basically, they're saying about the Prophet of Allah, he's doubtful, don't know, I'm not sure. And then on top of that, he's saying that he wants to kill himself. Fine. First of all, to refutation of this. And I'm helping here, I'm getting help from the Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah in his book, Ad-Difa' al-Hadith al-Nabawi. First of all, the hadith at the beginning, which until the extra bit is authentic, is the Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. Secondly, that the extra bit, it is not authentic, whether it is in its sanad, its chain, or in its matan, the wording of it. And the proof for that, for the unauthenticity, Shaykh al-Albani says, as for the chain, and then he mentions, and I'm not going to go through you with the chain and mention the names or not really authentic in that, it's going to be not my class. That's for hadith class. But I'm concerned about the matan, the wordings. Why Shaykh al-Albani says it's not correct. He said, it is not befitting to the infallible Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the Prophet, may peace and blessing be upon him. It's not befitting that him going to want to kill himself. It's not. Regardless of what is the reason. Because he himself is the one who said, Man taradda min jabalin faqatala nafsa. He who had pushed himself, threw himself from the top of a mountain until to kill himself, فهو في نار جهنم وتردى فيها خالدا مخلدا فيها أبدا. Then he's in the hellfire, coming down or throwing himself from the cliff forever. So in the hellfire, he's going to be going to a mountain, throwing himself, and then being killed, and then giving life again, throwing himself forever. That means for a long, long time. So how can the Prophet of Allah say that committing suicide is one of the major, not to say the major of the major sins, just less than shirk, and yet he wants himself to throw himself and kill himself. Also, when he said, "Khashitu ala nafsi," I was afraid unto myself. I was afraid something is going to happen to me. Well, doesn't mean that he is in doubt of his prophethood. It's actually basically khawfun bashari. What does that mean? Is a fear which is natural of a human being. And we can't really go more than what happened to Musa alayhi salam. What happened to Musa alayhi salam? Musa alayhi salam, when he has been given the prophethood and the power of the staff to be turned into a snake and his hand being pulled from his pocket to be light. So he said to him, وَأَلْقِ عَصَاكَ. Allah says to him, Revelation, throw your staff. فَلَمَّا رَآهَا تَهْتَزُّ كَأَنَّهَا جَانٌ وَلَّا مُدْبِرًا وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ. Imagine Musa alayhi salam now. As soon as Allah said, throw your staff, he threw it, and it was like a genie. A jinn started moving. What happened? Fled, ran away. He didn't even look back. A prophet Musa said, just running. وَلَّا وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ وَلَّا مُدْبِرًا وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ. Didn't even look back. I mean, imagine you throw something and moves. It moves, and it's a jinn. Like a jinn moves. And also the prophet Musa alayhi salam, when he killed that man, he was what? He was scared, afraid. So he said in a number of verses in Surah Al-Shu'ara, Surah Al-Qasas, فَأَخَافُ أَن يَقْتُلُونَ وَأَخَافُ أَن يُكَذِّبُونَ. I was scared. So this is a fear, which is a fear that is natural. A fear that is from the part of the human being. How can you say that this fear, it means that the Prophet of Allah has got a doubt regarding his message? So this is the first basically doubtful matter they throw upon us, which is, we call it when the wahi got delayed, the revelation. And also where the Prophet of Allah wants to throw himself from the cliff. We refuted here two things. Number one, not to make this hadith or to make it authentic, which is to do with that the revelation got delayed and the Prophet of Allah, he said, I was fearing for myself. And also the refutation of that this hadith, which is not authentic, to make it authentic, and that is the Prophet of Allah trying to kill himself. Fine. Second doubtful matter, which is that a man from the tribe of Bani Zurayq, Jewish, Labid ibn al-A'sam, he put magic onto the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, and I'm quoting there from Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, radiallahu anha, that سحر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أو سحر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رجل من بني زريق. A man from the tribe of Zurayq had put magic onto the Prophet of Allah. يقال له لبيد بن الأعصم. His name is Labid ibn al-A'sam. And the Prophet of Allah, because of that magic, he used to feel that he was doing something, but he was not doing it. Like he was approaching his wives, having marital relationship, but in reality he's not having. Until it was a day or a night when he was with me, but he was supplicating, Prophet of Allah, making supplication. And by the way, this magic stayed for the Prophet of Allah for 6 months. And then he said, Ya Aisha, oh Aisha, did you feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given me what I requested from him. Two men, and here the two angels, they came to me, and one of them sat next to my head. Actually, she can't see that. And the other one next to my feet. One of them is saying to his partner, to the other one, what is wrong with this man? He said, he's under the spell. And who has done the spell? The other one is saying, Labid ibn al-A'sam. In what way? He said, Mushtib wa mushata wa juffin wa juffi tal'in nakhla or tal'i nakhlatin bak. And that is in a comb and some hair. And you know the palm tree fronds, basically, they put it inside it. And he said to the other one, where is it? He said, in the Bi'r Dhirwan, in the well of Dhirwan. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, verily, Ya Aisha, this, the water of it, is like nuqa'at al-hinna, the soaked, what is left after hinna. And كأنها رؤوس نخلها أو رؤوس نخل وكأن رؤوس نخلها رؤوس الشياطين. And the tree is like the tree of the heads of the shaitan. Messenger of Allah, shall I go and take it out? He said, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had basically done that for me. So I don't want to make the people to have some sort of evil regarding this issue. So what I did, I have commanded for that tree or for that magic to be buried. So this hadith basically is authentic. And it says that the Prophet of Allah was under the magic. And there's no difference among the scholars regarding the authenticity of this hadith. It's Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, 100% authentic. Yet some of the mubtadi'ah, the innovators, have denied this hadith. Okay, some of the innovators have denied this hadith. And they said that how can you and how dare you accuse the Prophet ﷺ with magic? How somebody has have the magic, so that means his message is doubtful because he was under the spell, and this will be defaming the deen, and this as well will make it hard for the people to believe the Prophet ﷺ, and this will make the people have doubt about the Islam, and this also against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had said regarding the kuffar. وَقَالَ الظَّالِمُونَ إِن تَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا رَجُلًا مَسْحُورًا. And the kuffar, they said, you follow what? A man who's under the spell. So some of them, he said, I would like to be like the Bukhari rather than to attribute the hadith of the Prophet of Allah that he was under the magic. Maybe, no, how can it be? How can it be correct from Al-Bukhari and Muslim? We would say to him, with some of them, they said, this hadith, yes, it's authentic, but it's ahad. You know what's ahad? Not mutawatir. And we don't accept the ahad in the aqidah. This is aqidah regarding the Prophet of Allah. So we do not accept this hadith regarding the Prophet of Allah because it is ahad. Some of them, they say, well, we should really abide our aqidah and make it submit to our aql. Whatever our aql accept, we'll accept. Otherwise, we will throw out of the window. These are the people, as I said, from before and after regarding the revelation of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How to refute these arguments? Number one, we say that the hadith is hadith sahih, authentic. It's actually in the most authentic book after the Quran and Sunnah, and that is Bukhari and Muslim. Secondly, the hadith is to be taken in the aqidah, even if it is ahad. And there is no scholar from the scholars of Ahl Salaf. There's no sahabi. You remember the Sahaba when they had the qibla being changed, qibla being changed. One man, he went to a place not far away, and he saw the people praying towards Bayt al-Maqdis. While they were praying, he said the qibla was changed. They heard the man, they saw the man while they prayed. They turned 180 degrees. From praying to the north, they prayed to what? To the south, in Medina. They never said, we're not going to listen to him. He has to be mutawatir, man. We have to bring about 10 companions with him, then we will believe him. Straight away they have turned because it's trustworthy. They didn't say to him, give us more men so that we can believe you. They believed him. Yes, if you are in doubt of something, which is that man is not correct, maybe didn't understand it, yes, But we say that if that person, when he carries to you something which is you accept because he's trustworthy, memory sound, then we should not say, no, I can't, brother, take your words unless you have another person which is with you. Yes, the other person will make confirmation, will add to the iman. So whether it's ahad means less than mutawatir. It could be 2, 3, 4, but not mutawatir. Mutawatir means number of group of people narrate the hadith to another group of people in such a way that there will be an impossible conspiracy amongst them, because they cannot get together and forge a lie together. Our Quran, from Fatiha to Surah An-Nas, all of it mutawatir. Mutawatir. Okay? A group of people to a group of people to a group of people, there will be no conspiracy. But is it in every ayah like that? Well, the mutawatir in the Quran is not just like this. It's not like the hadith. The mutawatir of the Quran is that as long as the ayah came with authentic chain, doesn't matter if one can find. Like one of the ayat came from Khuzaymah ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu. He had been given two testimonies. He's got two testimonies that the Prophet said. It's authentic chain and matches the Arabic writing, second condition. Thirdly, matches the Arabic grammar. If these three conditions are there for any verse, it's called mutawatir. Number one, authentic chain of that narration. Number two, it matches the Arabic writing. So the Arabic writing in any shape or form, let's say for example, فَتَثَبَّتُوا فَتَبَيَّنُوا. This ayah, or فَتَثَبَّتُوا فَتَبَيَّنُوا. If you write it without dots, it looks the same. But the dots goes up and down. So it matches that, acceptable. Third condition, it has to match the Arabic language. I mean subject and object and all of that. Fine. So we, as Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we say that we haven't got something called Akhbar al-Ahad. We accept it only in the Ahkam, but not in the Aqaid. First of all, and also they say as well this, they said, for example, that we should really use our intellect regarding the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, and that is a cancellation of the hadith. تركت فيكم شيئين ما إن تمسكتم بهما فلن تضلوا بعدهما أبدا ولن يتفرقا حتى يرد علي الحوض. You will not, he said, you will not be ever misguided. If I left you two things, if you hold on to them, then you will never be misguided. What are they? Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. لن تضلوا بعدهما كتاب الله وسنة. And by the way, this hadith, our Shaykh al-Albani makes it authentic. Also, we say that this hadith is saying that it will make a doubt about the prophethood. How can the prophet will have a sorcerer having magic on him? Actually, it's on the contrary. It elevates the prophethood. It just tells us the prophet is a human being. And a human being is exposed to all sorts of things. Illness, prophets had illness. Ayyub alayhi salam had an illness which took him, according to the authentic narration, 18 years. 18 years he's got something wrong with his skin. And all the prophets had to have illness. So the illness, they are exposed to it. So the prophets, they eat, they drink, have illness, they have headaches, they have fever, and they can be poisoned as well. And the magic that affected the Prophet of Allah never affected the what? Revelation. It affected the dunya matters. So the Prophet of Allah used to see that he was approaching his wives in marital relation, but he's not doing so in the actual life. Also, the Prophet of Allah used to have, for example, fainting at the end before he died. He fainted so many times. The Prophet of Allah said, throw or pour onto me some water from 7 water bags. So the Prophet is a human being. And the Prophet of Allah, he said that we, the prophets, we get double the pain. That's why when he died, the Prophet of Allah, he was under the quilt, and the heat of his was so much that Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, when he entered, and also Fatima when she entered, Messenger of Allah, wa abata, wa karba abata. It's a really hardship of the Prophet. It's like the heat is multiplied. So the Prophet said, إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ مَعْشَرَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. We are like this prophets. يُضَعَّفُ لَنَا الْبَلَاءِ كَمَا يُضَعَّفُ لَنَا الْجَزَاءِ. Just like we have multiplied rewards, we have the disease as well to be multiplied. Too much onto us. يُبْتَلَى الْمَرْءُ عَلَى قَدْرِ دِينِ. The person will be tested according to the strength of his religion. فَإِنْ كَانَ فِي قُوَّةٍ اشْتَدَّ بَلَاءً. If he's to be strong in his religion, then his what? His bala, it will be what? Doubled and multiplied. فَإِنْ كَانَ فِي دِينِهِ رِقَّةً. If his deen is like flimsy, his deen is just like this, ابْتُلِيَ عَلَى قَدْرِ دِينِهِ. He will be afflicted according to the strength of his religion. وَإِنَّ الْبَلَاءَ لَا يَزَالُ بِالْعَبْدِ حَتَّى يَتْرُكَهُ يَمْشِي عَلى الْأَرْضِ مَا عَلَيْهِ خَطِيئَةٌ. And the affliction and the disease will stick to the person and will not let go of him until it makes him walk on the land sinless. No sins. And that is why the case of the believer. عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ إِنَّ أَمْرَهُ كُلَّهُ خَيْرٌ وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ لِأَحَدٍ إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. Amazing, remarkable, the case of the believer. All his cases is to be good. And this is exclusively to the believer, nobody else. In asabatu sarra, if he's in prosperity, shakar, he will express his gratitude. فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. It will be good for him. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاء. And if he's being afflicted by calamities, then he will endure it patiently. And that is good for him. It's only for the believer, ya ikhwan. Prophet of Allah, he's been wounded in the battle of Uhud. His raba'iyah, 2 incisors were broken. شُجَّ فِي وُجْنَتَيْهِ. He had a wound in his face, wound in his head. He's a human being. And also, as I said, this magic would elevate him. On the contrary, it teaches us how to deal with the magic. First thing the Prophet of Allah had done what? Made dua. He had da'a wa da'a. He supplicated until Allah sent him. So when you make dua, Allah will solve you. And I'm telling you, those people who are under the magic, wallahi, they know what I'm talking about. These people under the magic, they will sell their lives and give everything just for the sake of what? Cure. Because they're living a miserable life. They don't know what to do, how to live and to sleep just one calm night. They can't. What time is the Isha? Maghrib, sorry. Huh? 52. Yeah, we've got 4 minutes of the Adhan and got 10 minutes after that. So we'll finish in the 10 minutes, inshallah. So it taught us as well that one of the ways to solve the magic is to find where the magic is. Because the Prophet was told. And if you make supplication, Allah will show you where the magic. But we have experience, the ones who does this, they know where likely the magic will be according to the symptoms. So if it's a magic of love, it's under the pillow in the bedroom. If it's magic for the splitting the whole family, it will be under the doormat outside as soon as you come in. It will be close by. You understand me? So the people who knows about the magic, they will know where likely this magic will be hidden. And if you take it out, it will be solved. طيب. When they say that this hadith is against the Quran, when Allah talks about the kuffar, إِن تَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا رَجُلًا مَسْعُورًا. The people of kuffar, they said, you are following a kafir, a man who is what? Sorcerer. So when you say the Prophet of Allah has got sorcery on him, that means you are saying as the kuffar. What they're saying? We say, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. I mean, the kuffar say that the Prophet of Allah is a human being. We should really not believe him. He's not a human being. Is that right? The Prophet of Allah, they said he's a poor man. No, we cannot say like the kuffar. He's not a poor man, he's a rich man. A Prophet of Allah, he knows to read, he does not read, he's illiterate. No, he's not, he's not illiterate. We cannot go against the Prophet of Allah in everything, ikhwan. Sorry, against the kuffar in everything. The kuffar, they might something's correct. One of them, for example, when the Prophet of Allah, he said to that girl, who was a shepherd, whom Mu'ayyad al-Hakam al-Sulami wanted to free her, but the Prophet said, before you free her, let me test her. So he asked her, where is Allah? She pointed above, and in the narration, فوق السماء, above the heavens. Who am I? You are the Prophet. So he said, free her, she's a believer. You know these mushabbiha, mu'attila, the ones who are negating the attributes attributing themselves to Islam. They are Muslims. They are from the Mu'tazila, from the Asha'ira. They say that this hadith, okay, by the way, Sahih Muslim hadith, it's authentic, but when she says that he's above, because they don't really like the one that's above. This is natural, embedded in you when you're born. Your God is above you, wherever you are. So when they said this is what the kuffar believe above, so so it should not really be like the kuffar. Well, the kuffar say Allah exists as well. Allah does not exist. We have to be different from the kuffar in everything. Subhanallah. And I wait for you for the adhan, inshallah, to be called. Is it going to be called now? I think. Fadlan. I think it is now. Allah ما نعرف. هو راح كذا خوف. ما نسى.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Right. Just before I can give you the inshallah questions now, just to conclude the class, those people who had said that the Prophet of Allah was under the magic, it cannot be correct and authentic. That's why they are saying Bukhari is not correct. We say, no, he's a human being. And the last thing that they say, how can the prophets have shaitan onto them? Because magic is part of the shaitan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said about the shaitan, Allah, he said to him, Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan. Verily, my slaves, you have no sultan, power over them. So how can he have no power on the slaves of Allah Azza wa Jal, which are the righteous, and the prophets are the most righteous? This is the argumentation. We say, first of all, it doesn't mean that the shaitan cannot give something bad to the prophet. It's not correct. But the prophet to be affected with that, that is the thing which is called infallibility. For Ayyub alayhi salam had said, وَأَيُّوبَ إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ. And behold, when Ayyub called upon his Lord, أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ. Verily, the dur had got onto me. وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. And also, مَسَّنِيَ الشَّيْطَانِ. That also shaitan had approached me. Shaitan wanted even to throw a fire into the face of the Prophet ﷺ. So we do have prophets whom the shaitan tried to approach, but the effect on the prophets is not. And that is why the Prophet of Allah, he said, for each person, he has qareen. Qareen is a companion. This qareen of yours is kafir, from shaitan. He calls you to kufr. All the prophets got qareen, but he said, my qareen, mine. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's qareeb. أعانني الله عليه. Allah had helped me over him. قال فأسلم or فأسلم. That فأسلم, that I am protected. فأسلم, that means he embraced Islam. Whether this or that, the Prophet is not affected by that qareeb. So Ikhwani, we say to those people that the Prophet ﷺ, yes, he had the magic, but that did not affect his revelation, nor affected the Quran. Quran is protected, and it is just like another disease got to the Prophet of Allah, and the Prophet of Allah, alhamdulillah, removed it. And by the way, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, they were sent down because of the magic of the Prophet ﷺ. This recitation of the two surah, last one. So the two angels when they came, they gave these two surah, okay, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. You seek refuge Allah from the shaitan. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. So you are that powerful against the possession and the shaitan. We stop here inshallah, and we continue inshallah next week. If you have any questions, again what we've heard, we've got another 6 minutes inshallah. 4 questions. Fadal Abu Awaidah.
No. If a Muslim was to, because of ways to say, try to negate any hadith that comes from Abu Hurairah, and says, I will not take any hadith that comes from Abu Hurairah, does that take that person away from the Islam?
A person says, I don't take hadith from Abu Hurairah. Is that takes him outside the fold of Islam? Ikhwani, takfir upon a person is not my job or your job. But you're trying to tell that person, be careful. For example, this thing might take you outside the fold of Islam. We want to understand why he doesn't take Abu Hurairah. Maybe he was being misfed with information regarding Abu Hurairah by the Rawafid. You know the Rawafid? They don't just accept Abu Hurairah what he says. No. They make takfir upon Abu Hurairah. Okay? So the Rawafid themselves as well, when they make takfir to the companions, or they have hatred, we need to understand what type of hatred. Is it the hatred that because they've been misfed regarding information that they are no good to the Prophet, or they have conveyed the deen? If it is the second one, the kuffar. Okay? Any person who says the companion, all of them kuffar, is a kafir. But to see about a particular person, okay? Because now these days in the media, there's an attack on Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Hurairah. Because if they removed Abu Hurairah, they removed third of the ahadith. If they removed Abu Hurairah and Abbas, half of the hadiths. They removed Abu Hurairah and Abbas, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, most of the ahadiths. These come from these companions. One day, Sheikh al-Albani confronted him. He was asked, why the Rafidah hate Abu Hurairah? He said, because he broke their backs. Qasama dhuhumura. Wallah, I remember that. He broke their backs. That's why they hate him so much. He brought the hadith well, which makes their religion is actually man-made religion. It is man-made religion. It's made in Kufa. You know what's made in China? Made in Kufa. Wallah, it's made in Kufa by Qum. Al-Qummi, it's called Qummi. Qum. And his student Al-Kulayni. Now. Any other questions? تفضل. I'll go to here. Yalla Anish.
Assalamu alaikum. Sheikh, if we have a sister who recently accepted Islam but is still shaky in her aqidah and belief, however, she has a name that contradicts Islam, it represents some other gods from other religions. Should we focus on aqidah first to cement her in the religion and then tell her about the name, or should we tell her now about changing of the name?
What is the name?
It's some Hindu god. I can't remember it right now. My wife told me. But
Shiva. I've got a person who reverted from Hinduism. I'm asking him which god. Shiva or Mazra could be. Yeah, if that name represents a false god, we will nicely, say to her, you know, part of your Islam to change the name, but maybe she's going to have difficulty with her family. Remember that. As for the Aqidah, is more important than the name, regardless. The Aqidah is more. So if you teach her the Aqidah, later on she will know by herself that she needs to change her name. Okay? And take it slowly on these people. You have to be really slowly. You can't just tell them, by the way, you need to have your thawb above your ankles. It is deen first. Feed him deen and then talk about this issue.
No, Jazakallah khair.
Jazak. Yalla Yanis, Mike.
Sheikh, if an imam, every time before the talk or lecture, he does a dua and he recites some of the Quran, such as أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. If he recites these verses as a habit every time he does a lecture, would that be correct?
No, it's not correct. And I know who is he imitating. I know who he's imitating. Which sheikh is imitating. I know I'm going to mention the sheikh name. But this is not correct. To make it all the time the norm, that's not correct. If you want to stick to something, stick to what the Prophet says. Inna alhamdulillah. But then sometimes I start alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasul. Okay, so I would not really stick to something which is not the Prophet that's been done all the time. This is not correct. To recite that part of that surah, those ayat, and to make it all the time the start of your khutbah, and say to that person who he's imitating is not Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Jazakallah khair. Would it be considered as bid'ah or no?
It would be considered against the sunnah. Yes, if it becomes a bid'ah, if it's all the time like this, 100% all the time, he's targeting that, it becomes a bid'ah.
Jazakallah khair.
Is that? Hold on.
Question. You see, sometimes you find yourself with something beside you, right? And sometimes imam,
The last question, Ikhwan, because we've got prayer. Yeah. Which way, where to raise up the hands? Where? Yeah. If the imam does not raise up his hands, and this imam I'm following him, should I follow him not to raise up my hands? The norm should be yes, should not be raised up the hands. But now, depending upon the imam himself, is the imam a person who is learned or a person who is ignorant? He is learned and he feels that this is the correct way because he's following Abu Hanifa's madhab. And imagine Abu Hanifa is leading you. Okay, but if he's not learned, he's an ignorant, most of the imams these days, unfortunately, and they are just blind followers with no knowledge. They haven't investigated the hadith. Then you do what you think is the sunnah. But the norm is to follow the imam, as long as this is within difference among the scholars. والله تعالى أعلم وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.